It says starting. All right. And three, two, one. Welcome everybody to another episode of the Grind Line podcast. I hope Greg Tyler is taking a little break. I really hope that his house is not part of those exploding houses in Massachusetts right now. But I am here with Ryan.
What?
That is slightly concerning because we texted him and we haven't heard anything back. Yeah, gas main or something exploded and there are like 30 houses on fire in Massachusetts. They had to evacuate like 3 cities.
I mean, he didn't say what was going on. He just said he couldn't do it all of a sudden when he was fully on board. So, should probably text him here in a little bit. Anyways,
Yeah, you should get a hold of him if
oh,
so tonight we're gonna do a little bit of talking. A lot of big news, which is why we did this podcast so quickly. A lot of big news has come out in the last few days regarding a couple key players, and we've got a little bit of news on a possible management switch up. Prospect tournament happened, and then we have a mailbag. So we got a pretty big night tonight. We hope Tyler is okay, safe in his non-exploded home,
God.
and we're gonna get started. So the big signing recently was Tyler Seguin got his deal. Ryan, do you have the actual amount pulled up? I know it was an 8-year deal.
Yeah,
Um,
it was 8 year. The cap per
it was
cap
something like
friendly
8 years.
9.85 million.
Do you have it?
Yeah, cap friendly here 9.85 million is
Okay,
the hit.
so Sagan got an 8-year, $9.5 million deal. I think the first year of it, he's making like 13.5. So he will be, I think, the third highest paid player next year behind McDavid and there's another one that's really Tavares. So Tavares and McDavid will be making more money than him next year, but it makes him the third highest paid player in the league next season. So he's off the board. He was going to be one of the big free agent names coming up. Ryan, what do you think of the deal?
I mean, for the type of impact player he's become, it makes sense. I think overall it could be a little bit high in regards to the price, but at the same time, there's not many guys like him that could come in and single-handedly take over a game. And then with who he's got with them, like Jamie Benn, the way their combination has been, they are the heart and soul of that team. I'll happily say that I'm glad Larkin wasn't dropped that type of money, but
No.
that's a bit of a stretch. I don't have his year-over-year stuff pulled up. Oh wait, yes I do. I take that back. I mean, he's averaging roughly 70 points a season. So you get a guy going over 70, that's pretty good money typically. But I think it could have been probably closer to 7.5, and I think it would have made perfect sense, 7.5 to 8. He hasn't surpassed 80 points since the 13 season, and that was when he first came to Dallas. So it's is it worth it? Absolutely. If you got the room to do it and can build your team around it, especially because he's just an elite player in the league right now. So you can't fight it. And he's only 26
Yeah,
years
you
old.
have
So
Yeah, you have to lock up the stars of your team. They weren't going to let him walk. I mean, him and Jamie Benn, that's without him. I mean, yeah, Jamie Benn by himself is good, but who are you going to put with him and who's going to make up for those points? You're
exactly.
not going to find anyone else. So you lock up your stars, you do what it takes. And they were worried for a while that the deal wouldn't get done because he said there wasn't much conversation in the
hmm
offseason. And it seems like within the last week, the deal materialized and he got everything working.
I mean, to put it into perspective, I just pulled up Dallas Stars and Cap Friendly here. They've got him locked up. I mean, this year he's still making five and three quarter mil. They've got him, Radulov, and Ben all securely locked down through the 22 season. And those are your three
Yeah.
main heartbeats. And Ben's 29, Radulov's 32, Sagan 26. So you've got three guys, one at the end of their prime, one in the middle, one entering it, that are your foundations. And the money's really not awful what they've got put into them.
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, they're going to have money to spend. They're not the Stars are not a super expensive team.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, your top three, Ben, Radulov, and now Sagan, and it drops off quite a bit after that.
Mm-hmm.
So the other big news of the day was the Ottawa Senators traded Erik Karlsson to the San Jose Sharks. So the deal went down like this: Karlsson and Francis Perron to the Sharks for a first-round pick in 2020, a second-round pick in 2019, Chris Tierney, Dylan DeMello, Josh Norris, and Rudolph Balcers. So
I'll
I
answer
can
everyone's
say,
question. Who?
yeah, I don't know who two of those people are. Tierney and DeMello, I believe, are roster players. Norris and Balcers are, I think they're calling them something like second string prospects. They're not top prospects. They're okay. When Eugene Melnick, I think they asked him about either Balcers or Norris, why them, and his only reason was because one of them is best friends
With Tkachuk.
with Brady Tkachuk. So I guess if you're best friends with a hockey player, that you automatically become good.
Good
I
by
guess.
osmosis.
Yeah. So so there's also a couple tentative draft picks conditionals in there. If the Sharks sign Karlsson to an extension, the Senators also receive a second round pick in 2021. And if he is if he is on an Eastern Conference team by the end of the 2018-19 season, the Sharks also have to give Ottawa another pick.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically a no trade clause in the trade, I guess, a no trade to an Eastern team in the trade, which to me means that they know Karlsson wants to be on a team in the Eastern Conference and doesn't necessarily want to go to San Jose. He just wants to get the hell out of Ottawa.
Which is the most logical thing you could ever have, especially for anyone currently there. I feel bad for all the prospects that got traded there, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I mean their cap hit's got to be like $6 million now. Well,
Oh,
no, Bobby Ryan and then an additional $6 million. But that was the big thing. People thought Bobby Ryan was going to have to be attached with that Karlsson deal
for the
because
longest time.
Yeah, he's not a garbage player, but he's nowhere near worth his contract.
No.
So
And he's still got 4 more years, including this season, at 7.25.
yeah, so Karlsson went. Bobby Ryan didn't go. I don't know who Francis Perron is, to be honest with you. He also went. The Sharks gave up quite a bit for a rental who I don't believe is going to re-sign with them. I think he can get that 8th year if he re-signs with them as kind of a little bonus.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he'd rather take 7 and a lot of money and stay on the East Coast. I know he doesn't want to play for a Canadian team, so.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of the players that we were hearing a lot about, especially at the trade deadline last year, like Tampa Bay, for instance, are still going to be main contenders to get his services going into the season, or into next season, I should say. But we'll see what our next topic is, whether or not that actually has a giant influence on what he does or does not do moving forward.
Yeah, I also think the Red Wings will put in a pretty large bid for Karlsson. They'll probably have upwards of $25 million free next season as long as they don't make dumb decisions. I know right now they're looking at a guy. They're looking at a guy out of Russia that I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name. But watching his highlight reel, he looks really good. He will be free in 2019-2020 season.
Mm-hmm.
And he's 24 years old, but his highlights are spectacular. And if you don't have another forward in the pipeline, no, Bruner's highlights were good, but they weren't this good. And Bruner wasn't from Russia. Where was he from?
No, I think he was Swedish. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, okay. He wasn't that great, but this kid looks solid. He wants to make the jump over to the NHL. And he's 24, and he's tied to us, the Blackhawks, and a few other teams, the Knights, and someone else I can't remember. But
interesting.
That's what we're looking at as a possible Russian player, and we've got the in with Datsuk, so I think that would help us on any kind of negotiation.
Well, that in 1920, if that's the year that he's coming through, there's a lot of contracts on the back end coming off, depending on what we do in free agency or going into it. So that's definitely a possibility.
Absolutely. So we'll move on to the other big news from this week. Kind of, it went from dead hockey to holy shit, stuff's happening.
Yeah, you can tell training camps around the corner.
Yeah, so 2 days before the Lightning training camp sets to open, Steve Yzerman announces that he is stepping down as general manager of the Tampa Bay Lightning and moving back to the Metro Detroit area to quote unquote spend more time with his family.
Red
He
Wings?
will Brisebois was one of their assistants, will be taking over as GM. And Steve Yzerman will take the advisor role to Brisebois, so he'll kind of be his boss and help him through. But he will be living in Michigan. He said that he was doing a lot of travel between Michigan and Florida. It made it a little harder to do the GM job, and he loves to put all he has into his work and felt like he couldn't do that. Just as a little background, his family never left Michigan. He has 3 daughters. I think a couple of them
Which
go to
really
U of M.
surprised me, to be honest. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I mean they raise their kids in Michigan,
Yeah.
and they have a house in Grosse Pointe, and I think a couple of his daughters, I believe, go to U of M. And when he moved to Tampa, he got that house in Tampa. They didn't want to go because why uproot your entire family? I mean, he's not playing there; he's the general manager.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be weird if he didn't end up with the Red Wings. I think a lot of it because he's under contract, he can't talk about anything. He could break the contract. Ken Holland alluded to making front office, being open to any front office moves because he lost a lot of people, a lot of upper office people. So he said he was open to anything. Now, the way I kind of see it happening is if Jim Devellano, who is 75 years old, retires, say he retires, moves on, Holland takes Devellano's job and Steve becomes GM. That's how I look at it happening. Or Devellano retires and Stevie becomes president of hockey ops for the Red Wings. Yeah. So the other thing that I found interesting was there's some rumbling online and on the radio that Tampa may have forced him out of the GM role.
This is something that I was not aware of.
Yeah, so what I was hearing was that Brisebois was going to take a position elsewhere. He had been interviewing for GM jobs and stuff, and they didn't want to lose him. So by saying, Stevie, we know you want to go home. We know you miss Detroit. You've gone there several times. He apparently has coffee with Devellano and plays golf here and everything. We know you miss Detroit. We know there's going to be a job opening up for you. Listen, they only signed Holland for 2 years. We don't want to lose Brisebois. Would you mind taking his advisory as advisor role to him when we make him the GM, and they would give you a job in a heartbeat in Detroit? And I could see that happening, but I know Yzerman's a family guy, so I kind of take his word for it.
Right. To me, it almost seems too good to be true for how things have kind of come about in the last couple of days. Him coming back to Detroit area is absolutely fantastic, and the possibility of him taking over and finally fulfilling his duty and taking over for Ken Holland, which we all feel is several years overdue, aka when he left the first time. But
yeah,
just knowing what he can do, he's got the ability to scout, he's got the ability to build a team, make wise contracts. He's not afraid to make a trade to make the team better, to try to win. So there's everything. His track record in Tampa speaks for itself, and damn well if he came here, that would, and Ilitch is going to see this too in the terms of revenue stream coming in. If they brought Yzerman back, that's going to fill that house immediately.
Yeah, so that was the one thing that I think was the sore spot, is that Ilitch and Yzerman, I don't think get along very well. They haven't talked much. Chris Ilitch says he hasn't kept constant contact with him. Mm-hmm. He could be lying because they can't talk about anything because of contracts and the NHL contracts. But if Yzerman is here, and they kept asking him at the press conference, they said, hey, past this year, are you still gonna be with Tampa? He goes, well, I'm gonna fill out my contract this year, and past this year, I don't know what's gonna happen. So, is he gonna come? Will he most likely end up with the Red Wings? I think so. I think it would be hard for him not to, because he will be here. He can have a job here. He just drives down to Detroit or works from home. It's great. So I think he ends up here, and Tampa fans are so salty right now. They are so. Some of them are like, "Oh my God, we love you. Thank you for all the help." The other ones are silently angry, like their face is turning red and they're screaming internally.
That's a bipolar fan base.
It is, and it's because they're still. I mean, they're not a crazy old franchise.
I mean, at least they've won a title. They're competitive. They're not like the Blue Jackets in any shape or form, because they just give you false hope every year, then suck. But
yeah,
Tampa fans have become unbearable the last couple of years, mainly because they've absolutely destroyed us on the ice year over year since 13 pretty much. So that has added to it, but at the same time, it's just be quiet, just relax.
Yeah, so the Yzerman news was really big, and I don't think there is any doubt that he will end up with. I mean, there's a little doubt, but I don't think it's enough to worry about it. But I believe we will end up back with the Red Wings.
So
we're gonna go over this a little bit quick.
Sorry.
What?
No, I was gonna say what makes me feel the best about it is just seeing some of the comments of guys that have been around their Wings, beat writers and whatnot, that know Yzerman to an extent, and just their feeling is what makes me feel better, because they believe it as well, that he will be back and that he's going to take the reins and just go. So,
yeah. So we'll glaze over this real quick. The prospect tournament did happen in Traverse City recently. The Wings did get second place behind the Columbus Blue Jackets. They got blown out in that last game, 7-2. It was a very physical game. It seemed like everyone was trying to kill Zadina. The high points that I took away from the entire tournament are Dennis Cholowski is ready to go.
Yep.
My God, that kid. He's skate. He can pass. He's big. He can score. He's very fleet of foot. He is a defenseman we need. I think he could make the lineup. If not, he'll be in Grand Rapids and he'll be up this season at some point.
Yep.
The other takeaways were Zadina looked very good at points, kind of disappeared at others. The kid's got flashy hands. I think he only scored twice during the whole tournament. He needs to keep his head up. They were trying to murder him on the ice. They're trying to murder him. And then my other takeaway. Oh, yeah. No, you can go look at it. Just type in Columbus Zadina hit, and you'll see what happened to him. Rasmussen scored a few goals. He's big out there. He sits in front of the net and does what he needs to do. He'll make the team no problem this season.
Yep.
And then the surprise, Joe Veleno looked superb the entire tournament. Now, I still think he goes back to juniors, but I mean, he's a steal for where we picked. We give him 30th. He's a steal for where.
Are you really surprised though, thinking about it, with how Veleno performed in that, and just how he's already got the talk going around his name already?
Oh yeah, and he was one of those people to get that exception.
Yep.
And only 2 or 3 other players have gotten. So,
which is really funny to touch on Veleno. I'm not trying to go too deep into this one, but my Time Hop feed showed me the article projecting Detroit's 2020 lineup. I don't know if you saw me repost this, but they actually picked that was when before the start of last season, Veleno was projected number 3 overall, and they had him going to Detroit. So long term, there's this could be the true steal of the draft if all works out well.
Well, that's funny because then Zadina was projected to go 3rd overall and he didn't. So essentially, if it works out, we got 2 people who should have been in the top 3.
Technically, yeah.
So do you have any other takeaways from the tournament?
The biggest thing I got to take away, and it's going to lead it into this weekend, is that Blashill made the point that Veleno, Zadina, and Rasmussen are going to continue to play with each other coming into the training camp this weekend. And tentatively, possibly into an exhibition game. So it's what I like to hear is the way the praise the coach has given some of these guys that are expected to be at a high level of everyone that you pretty much just mentioned, particularly Chalowski, and how he just controlled the ice and had big minutes in this tournament and just looked like he was a man among boys pretty much. So it's like we've said over and over, it's a very promising feeling going into this training camp.
Yeah, our prospects looked very good. And they were saying that we were expected to win the tournament just because of how stacked our team was versus others. So it was a good showing. They didn't have it that last game, but it was positive. I like what I saw.
Yep.
So we're gonna end this week's episode with some mailbag. Now, I had put out the feelers for mailbag a while ago, and then I got sick and lost my voice. And then Yzerman's announcement of him stepping down miraculously cured me. So we got a few from Facebook, and I know we have a couple from Twitter. So we'll start with this one from Robert Love Music on Twitter. At Robert Love Music says, out of picks in rounds 3 through 7 since 2013, which Red Wings prospects do you see finding a long-term career as an NHL player? So let's each pick one. We got to run through the mailbag. So let's each pick one player from the 3 through 7 rounds since 2013 that will have a long-term NHL career.
If I'm looking through here, so I'm starting back at 13. Those first two, 13 and 14, nobody stands out. 15, maybe not. Really, you have to almost get up. The most promising, I think, would be Ville Saarvi. He was a third-round pick, number 73 in 2015. I think for how things have been going for him the last couple of years, actually, it's between him and Dominic Turgeon, who was 2014 in the third round. I think those are the two that have the best chance moving forward to cement themselves in a role-playing type, especially Turgeon. He kind of be Luke Glendening 2.0, if you will, taking over third, fourth line duties here in the next couple of years. So to me, for what they've shown, how they're looking so far in Grand Rapids and how they've kind of worked their way through, and Turgeon's already got a little bit taste of NHL action. So between those two, I'd say Turgeon has the best chance of really going long-term overall.
Yeah, I see Turgeon as kind of like a Luke Glendening kind of third, fourth line grinder.
Yeah,
I would say Axel Holmstrom. I think Axel Holmstrom was a third rounder, third or fourth.
He was on HockeyDB.com. He was a 7th rounder in 2014.
Yeah. So Axel Holmstrom scored a couple goals in the prospect tournament, and he looked really good out there. So I think Axel Holmstrom is going to be a guy who, again, a late round pick that is going to have a long-term NHL career because he's fast, he's got hands, he's had some injury issue, but I think he's one of the ones that will have a pretty long career, and I think the Red Wings would like to keep him around if they could.
Yeah, for sure. I think a wild card in all of this could be David Pope, for how he's kind of come out of nowhere and really started to make a name for himself the last year and a half. So that's then also we got Philip Larson, goaltender. That was a 6th rounder. So there's some names in there that really have there's some names the last couple of years, and then we got Petruzuli, who was a 3rd round pick. Let's see, and then just going into this season, Regula, Eliasson, so Kevin Maki. There's some guys that have potential, but it's like I said, the prospect pool for Detroit for once is deep and it's exciting.
Yeah. So next question from Twitter is from Adam Flett. If Seguin or Duchesne are available, do you take a run at them as a GM as a 1-2 punch with Larkin? So we know Seguin is not available anymore. And like he said, too, we're lacking defense. He knows defense is an area we need.
Mm-hmm.
Do I take a run at Matt Duchesne? Not unless we can get rid of a couple other, like a guy like, if we can get rid of both Nyquist and Helm, then I'd take a run at Duchesne. I I don't want to, like I said, mortgage the future to get someone just to get someone. Duchesne, amazing player.
He needs to take a
Absolutely.
pay cut to me.
But he's good. He's really good. And would
Yes.
I like to have him on the Detroit Red Wings? Absolutely. Who wouldn't?
Mhm.
But I don't want to mortgage the future and not give kids spots just to sign someone to a huge contract.
Yeah,
Would
exactly.
Duchesne and Larkin be great together? Absolutely.
It'd be beautiful. I mean, he's had similar seasons to Larkin over the last several years, so you'd have two of those guys playing together, and they're going to make each other better. Granted, the biggest difference is that Duchesne is 27 currently, but if they got him for less than $6 million, which is what he's currently got in this final season, I would say yes. I would like to see a guy like him because, for one, he goes down the middle, or play the wing. So there's your one of your main needs, and with Zetterberg out of the picture, your number 2 is Franz Nielsen. He should be your number 3, to be quite honest. So if that he comes in, you've got a 1-2, 1A, 1B combo between him and Larkin. I'd be very okay with that.
Yeah, I agree. I just don't want to. If a stud defenseman comes up that's on the same pay scale and same level as Duchesne, I take the defenseman. I wouldn't
Absolutely.
get both. Yep. So we have a few questions from Facebook too. Trevor Mack says, "Do you feel Ken Holland is a GM that is too friendly to players?" Saying that, I mean, he doesn't leave emotions off the table when it comes to trades. Maybe he won't trade a guy because it's someone he drafted and doesn't want to uproot his family. Maybe he asks more for a player than he is worth. That's quintessential Ken Holland, right? Darren Helm is somehow related to him, so Helm gets a massive contract for no reason. He doesn't want to trade people because he says he needs to honor their contracts. That's the Ken Holland of old. He just wants to be nice to everyone.
Is it the Ken Holland of old, or is it the Mike Ilitch of old?
No, I think.
Or is it a little bit of both, and then but more Mike? That's just the way I'm starting to think lately. Is it was more ownership that had a hand in things, because Mike was very engaged, and just the way that the Tigers have been torn down, really against what Ilitch wanted to do, and now how the Wings are taking a similar path, but in a little bit better way, and the way that Holland's doing it has kind of re-established my faith a little bit. And what he is willing to do to try to make the team better. So it's, I'm on the fence.
I can see it being a little of both. If Holland wanted to do it, I think he could say, "Hey, we need to trade this guy. There's an opportunity there. We've got someone coming up," and they'd say, "Okay." But I mean, he's always been too nice, and I think that'll stop now because I think Chris Ilitch is on their ass.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Tatar trade was the kicking of the pail right there to get moving along. So that's where I think things are going to start changing.
Yep. From Sam Toasty on Twitter, how many people are upset about the new app process for tickets? I think it's going to be a nightmare waiting for everyone to get their phone ready and then scanned. So I actually have experience with this ticket process already. I went to the Prospect development camp game, the scrimmage, and no issues whatsoever. I got my ticket. Everyone already had their phones out waiting in line because everyone lines up before they start scanning.
Yeah.
So you get in, it's a QR code. They scan it on your phone. You go right in. I had no issues. A lot of the people that have problems with it are old people.
I would agree.
The old people are very resistant to change. They want paper tickets. They complain about not having smartphones. You can still get your paper tickets at the box office, but we are almost one of the last teams to do this electronic ticketing.
Yeah, I know the Blue Jackets because I was living down there for a couple of years. Everything they do either or, but majority were digital. And like the Lions, for instance, I was just at their preseason debacle against the Browns. Everything's digital for them. It was pulled it up real quick, scanned it in, too easy. So I don't think it'll be really an issue at all, unless your phone just doesn't want to load it. Like if you have an iPhone, for instance, if you've got Ticketmaster or StubHub on your phone, save it to your wallet, then all you do is pull it up real quick and boom, you're done.
Yeah, it all runs right through the District Detroit app too. I go into the District Detroit
Does it?
app, I
Okay.
log into my Ticketmaster from there. Yeah, and you just click Red Wings tickets and they're all there.
Awesome.
It's beautiful. So I think if you're resistant to it, try it out. You can still, like I said, you can still get paper tickets, but I don't think it's going to be a problem because literally every other team does it,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't seem to have any. And our final question from Twitter is from Danny Hudson. What are your predicted lines for next season? So
Whew.
I think at forward, and it's hard to think of lines because Blashill runs the blender, but at forward, your top line should be probably Mantha,
Mm-hmm.
Larkin, and most likely Nyquist.
You think they'll
That's
go?
going to be your top
You think
line.
they'll go truly top heavy with it?
I don't think they will throw a rookie on the top line.
Bertuzzi?
Like no, I don't think so. I think Bert's on your second line. I think your
Okay.
second line is something like a Bertuzzi, Zadina, Rasmussen. That's something like your second line. Your third line's your Nielsen, Athanasiou, Vanek, and your bottom line is Helm, Abdelkader, Glendening. That's your four. That's your four top lines.
I think the fourth line is the most for sure cemented line that we can predict. I agree with the top line. I think Nyquist is kind of a toss-up being up there. It makes the most sense because of how he is a playmaker along with Larkin. So it would actually remind me of Z Larkin and Z Nyquist and Tatar line almost, or Nyquist, Zetterberg, and Datsuk of old.
Yep.
Moving down, I think I'm going to say that Nielsen and Vanek are separated this season, only because that's two guys that can't really move that well. I think Nielsen's definitely the lock for the number 2 center spot with Rasmussen on his side, and then either Bertuzzi or Nyquist there. I think those two are going to kind of interchange between 1 and 2. And then Double A and Vanek for sure on line 3 with likely Zadina. And we could see really Zadina seeing second line minutes too, if not top line, depending on what they're just if he goes blender on him, just to see what he can do against tougher competition. So that's we're pretty much on the same page, I would say, with the exception of possibly Nyquist of where he could end up floating around to. And the defense is just a fucking crapshoot.
I think the defense is where you get a little shaky. It's going to be Green on the top pairing with, I want to say, with probably Philip Hronek.
You think Hronek
or Dennis Cholowski? If Cholowski showed well, so I'm thinking it's going to be probably Green Cholowski or Green, and this is where it's so hard. Or they're going to put Green to Kaiser as your top pairing.
To start the season, I'd agree with Green to Kaiser.
Okay, so your second pairing is going to be Daly and then one of Hronek or Cholowski.
Yes.
And your third pairing is going to be Kronwall Eriksson.
Jesus Christ. Oh, my God.
I mean, that leaves out Nick Jensen, but I think Jensen's traded or benched. They've got to bring in someone on defense. And I know Blash says it doesn't matter if you're a rookie or a veteran, whoever plays best is going to get the ice time. So you would hope that Eriksson is benched, but I don't see that happening. You're going to have, and it pains me to say it, it's going to be Green to Kaiser, Daly, Cholowski / Hronek, and Kronwall Eriksson. That's going to be your defense. And like all articles you see online right now, we do have the worst defense in the entire league.
Oh, hands down.
The worst.
The only way you can make that less painful is if you have Eriksson bumped up and now with Kronwall, because those two together is literally like fucking skating through cement.
It is.
Oh my God.
And that's where all the goals are going to come from.
Yep.
And it's just going to be real sad forever. That's like sadness forever is the name of the Red Wings defense core.
2 more years and the pain goes away. 2 more years. Because no one.
It's like ripping a Band-Aid off.
Is it a Band-Aid or is it going to be more like 40-year-old virgin getting the hairs ripped off his chest with the wax?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be something, man. It's like jumping through fire, except for you have to stand in it a little bit before you can jump out.
Like that is
But
truly
like,
what
I
I'm
think this
afraid
is
of and not looking
Cronwall's.
forward to.
Yeah, I think this is Cronwall's last year. I think he retires after this year,
Yep.
or gets hurt halfway through the season. I can't, God, I can't see them keeping Daly or Green gets traded at the deadline. One of the two. It's got to
Don't they both
happen.
have no move though? I know Green does.
You can get them to. You could have convinced Green last season to move.
Yeah.
I think it improves next season. I'll say that it'll improve next season.
No, I totally agree because I mean Cronwall's contract falls off. You've got Jensen's gone most likely, no matter what happens, whether he's traded early on or not. But I mean Daly's got a full no trade clause up until
Next year.
so
We only had a 3-year.
So going into this season, I'm on cap friendly again here. Up until 10 days prior to the 2018-19 trade deadline is a full no trade clause, after which the player can provide the club with a 15-team no trade list.
Yep.
So his goes modified.
And his contract's not that terrible for what he actually does.
Mm-hmm. And Eriksson also has, starting this season, a 19-team no trade list.
Does Eriksson have a clause that says he's not allowed to be the first player to play hockey on Mars? Because we can do that.
I think we should make that happen.
Ship him out
We
there.
need to get NASA on the phone here in this next one. So, and then Mike Green is a full no trade clause until February 2020.
Yeah. Which we could get him to waive to go to a contender or wherever.
Possibly, yeah.
But so that completes our mailbag. We went through them kind of quickly, but we're a little tight on time. Ryan, you got any final thoughts? And if you do, let me know. If not, shout out your Twitter handle for me.
I think my only final thoughts are just looking forward to, for one, I think tomorrow, this is Thursday night, so tomorrow training camp gets fully going for the Red Wings up there in Traverse City, and we'll officially know the status. We'll hopefully officially know the status of Zetterberg. So my eyes are going to be watching that, as most likely everyone else. But I'm just excited that the season's almost here. So other than that, my Twitter handle is at @RDRyan33.
Yeah, my final thoughts are I have cautious optimism for this coming season. Just excited to see the kids. Excited for the new ticket pricing plans that they rolled out. I know there are going to be 100 tickets to each home game that are going to be $20. So that's exciting. There's some new packages. Yeah, there's going to be some new packages coming out where you can get 2 tickets and a $20 concessions voucher for $70. So they know they need to get butts in seats, and that'll help get my butt in a seat.
Uh-huh.
So I'm excited. I'm going to go see kids a couple times, play some hockey. And you can follow me on Twitter at Bringing the Wing. You can follow the Grindline Podcast on Twitter at GrindlinePod. We are also on Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, all those fun listening platforms that all you youngsters love to listen to. But so set us a subscribe to our podcasts. Give us a follow on Twitter. Drop us a line if you have any questions. We love talking to people.
Especially Greg, you like to talk
But that'll
shit.
do it for this episode. Everyone have a good night and stay classy, Hockey Town.